Hello, my name is William, the Avid reader, and today I'm reviewing The Dark Tower 3, The Wastelands, written by Stephen King in 1991. So this is the third book in the Stephen King Dark Tower epic series. And these books get longer and longer, so the previous one was, 450 pages. This one is almost 600 pages, and I'm aware that they will get longer. This book starts a lot with bringing up the lore of Stephen King, of his multiverse, and talk about the turtle and things like that. There are two sections in this novel called books, and in each of these books there are 3 chapters each. So 2 books and 6 chapters. So the first part of the book, and before I continue there will be spoilers in this review, is about bringing Jake back to Midworld, where Roland is with his pals Eddie Dean and Susanna Dean, previously known as Odetta Holmes. So the first chapter in the book is called Bare and Bones, and we get to see here Roland training Susanna Dean to shoot, and we also see that Eddie Dean is carving something. And while he's carving something, he's attacked by this bear called Shardik. So Eddie Dean climbs up a tree, and from the back, Roland and Susanna Dean arrive, and Susanna Dean uses her training to shoot and kill Shardik, the bear. And then they discover that it's a cyborg, and Roland realizes also it's one of the 12 guards of the beam. So one of the other guards was the turtle we saw in It. So that's interesting. So these books are starting to connect each other now. I noticed early on in this book that once you've read a bunch of Stephen King books, you will see that everything is starting to tie in together in the Wastelands. So it's a very interesting book lore-wise for Stephen King. But anyways, you also see that Eddie is reflecting on his dead brother since he's hearing voices of him. Roland is sick. Chapter 2 is called Key and Rose, and it's solely about Jake's life in New York. Since in the previous book, Jack Mort was killed, then Jake was not killed by being pushed over a road, which means he didn't come into Midworld, which means he's still alive, back in New York. So here we get to see a day in Jake's life and how he thinks he's going to die sooner or later. And it's the exams days, and he's nervous, and he realizes he has written an essay that is basically a statement on the Dark Tower. So he panics, leaves, and each time he opens the door, he thinks it's a door to another world, but it isn't, and he walks and walks, and he gets to this road previously where he had been run over, expects to be run over, pushed by someone. We learn here that it was Jack Mort and not the man in black who pushed him, because he thought it was some priest disguise or something like that. So Jake moves on with his day, and he goes into a bookshop and he buys a couple books. So he buys a book full of riddles. There are a bunch of riddles in the Wastelands for some reason. For Gunslingers, it is very important riddles. And he also buys a children's book called Charlie the Choo Choo Train. And we get a long scene description of what the book is and several scenes in the book. And we get to see the friendship between a train and an engineer. And it ends with a happy ending. Jay comes home. His parents are angry at him. He stands up to his parents and they're amused by this action, so they shut up. He returns to his room. The cleaning lady speaks to him. It's the closest thing he has to his friend. He also got a letter from one of his teacher, his friend's teacher, and he also learned that the essay he wrote got an A+ mark. The English teacher was really impressed on what his thoughts on truth or something like that was. And she thought that the Dark Tower thing was just an analogy of his families and things like that. So, yeah, they don't think he's crazy. The third chapter in this book is a mix of Jake's world and Midworld, where Roland and his buddies are. And we go back and forth between them, and Jake's walk on the street, And an important thing in a Stephen King book, he doesn't do coincidences. So there are a bunch of names like Turtle, other things like that, Tower, yeah, out of nowhere. Yeah, that's weird. And Jake stumbles upon Eddie and Henry Dean when they were children. He sees them from afar. There's some telepathy between Eddie and Jake somehow. Jake gets to see that Eddie and Henry are going to this haunted mansion. They don't go inside. Jake decides to go to this haunted mansion. He has found a key previously. And on the other side, the other world, they are trying to reach him to help him to get out. So they're getting close to a door, but they have to pass through some demon. So here you get a weird scene where Susanna has to take out her Detta because Odetta and Detta kind of reside with her, but they have been combined into Susanna for better remembering. But now Detta kind of comes out, and we learned that previously when she was young, she cock-teased people, and now she actually offers her up to this demon and traps him within her. So they're trying to open this door, Eddie and Ronan, and to find it. Jake enters the mansion, and then he gets to see... Man, here is maybe a kind of scary moment in the book, the only one. You've got some scary moments in the Dark Tower, you could say, but they're pretty rare. But there's a plaster man coming from the wall, and it's going to kill him in a brutal way. So he has to open the door to another world. He struggles, he drops the key, and from the other side of the world, someone hands it back to him. The door is open just as Jake is about to be taken by the plaster man. In the other world, Susanna has scared this demon thing. She lets him go. Ronan catches him and brings him back into the other world. And I think throws him to this plaster man and he dies horribly. And then they bring back Jake to Midworld. And now the whole Catet group, they keep talking about this K force, are together and they close the door. And yeah, that's book one of this novel. And that's half the book, getting Jake back together. So Jake was not dead actually. That's why in the first book I remember saying, I thought he died, but you may have noticed in that video that I was unsure, and I was right to be unsure. Because there's some quote here and in the back of the book saying there are other worlds than these, so this basically means you die in one world but you can be brought back from another. Book 2 is called Lud, a heap of broken images, and it starts out with chapter 4, Town in Catet. One of the first things you get to see in chapter 4 is Jake getting a new pet, a Billy-Bumbler, which is some weird feline dog thing, which he names Oi, and it can speak some words like a parrot kind of, so it says Oi and ache and things like that. So they all walk together, Susanna Dean still in a wheelchair. They stop by some town with a bunch of old people. They talk about some history of the world and how there's been pirates and things like that, and the Greys. And then they move on, and there's speculation that if they had stayed the night, they would have basically stayed forever, probably. So then they start telling what they have done previously, their version of the story so far as in the Dark Tower. So there's a lot of recapping in the Dark Tower 3. Then chapter 5 is called Bridge and City, and they're getting closer to the tower. Who knows when they'll reach it. But they have to travel this bridge. Eddie's afraid of heights or something like that. And there's a moment where Oi almost slips off. Jake tries to save him, almost slips off too. And there's this heated scare cliffhanger where you will think that maybe Jake and Oi will die. But no, Oi bites Jake to remain on the bridge. And Roland has promised that he will not let him fall, so he saves them with the help of Eddie and Susanna. He continued the bridge, and they get to meet this old man, disease-ridden guy called Gasher, and he's a pirate, and he has a grenade in his hand, and he demands to get Jake to bring him to the TikTok man, and they accept. So Jake is manhandled by this weird pirate guy and brought to the TikTok man. They have to go through a bunch of booby traps. Roland splits up with Susanna, Dean, and Eddie. The Deans go off to find Big Blaine, while Roland goes to liberate Jake. We are introduced to the TikTok man, the pirate. He makes an example of some lady there and kills her with a knife. Gasher, to get in there, he had to say some password, but he's an illiterate bastard, so he has to get some help from Jake. There are some funny moments in this book in a kind of horrifying way. So Gasher and Jake get into this pirate's lair, and you get to see the TikTok man. And Jake has been hit by the TikTok man and Gasher, and there's this questioning because they've seen a down plane, and they ask if he's a Nazi, and he says no. He replies he's an American. Roland is following along with Oi. Meanwhile, Eddie Dean and Susanna Dean have found Big Blaine, the train, and they're negotiating with him for help, and he's threatening them to kill them. And then Roland rescues Jake. There's a showdown scene. Oi comes along, a bunch of people are killed. They think the TikTok man is dead and move on, and then reunite with the Deans, who previously, before getting to Big Blaine, were going to be assaulted by a mob because they shot some weird dwarf that were going to kill them with a grenade. The mob was gunned down. But anyways, the Deans are reunited with Jake and Roland, and they speak to Big Blaine to let them go because he's going to release this gas into this city and kill everyone. They're going crazy and killing each other because the Greys are dead. And towards the end of this chapter, we actually see the TikTok man survived, and there's this wizard who comes and awakes him and pulls him away. In the final chapter, we get to see the riddles. So there's a riddle that Big Blaine the train has told them. They figure it out through some data and numerics, get on the train and get to see the wastelands that this gas creates, seeing a bunch of people die, seeing how deformed this part of the world is. And then there's this realization that Big Blaine, the train, is going to commit suicide. His previous girlfriend train thing, Patricia, had done so already. And they end up negotiating through insults first and then soft power. Okay, listen, so we will tell you this bunch of riddles, Big Blaine, and if you figure them all out, you can kill yourself with all of us on board. But if we get to the place we're going first, then you let us live. And they agree to it. And that's how the novel ends. So it doesn't really have a conclusive ending. The first Dark Tower book kind of had one. Same with the second. This one ends with some issues unresolved. The TikTok man has survived, and we don't know what's going to happen with Big Blaine. So, how would I rate the Dark Tower 3, The Wastelands? I would say 8 out of 10. A thing I will say with this novel, it keeps a consistent pace, and it's not really all over the place like previous books, like The Gunslinger, the first novel. It was good in the beginning, but then it was just meh. The second book, The Drawing of the Tree, the Eddie Dean stuff was great with the gangsters and all of that, but the Odetta things were boring, kind of. I didn't really enjoy that. And the Jack Moore thing, yeah, that was entertaining enough, but the pace was all over the place. Here with The Wasteland, the pace is actually good, and here's a good level. Stephen King, as always, writes too much, so yeah, there are a couple dozen pages or so you could probably edit out, but it's a good book overall. You are entertained in each chapter, something exciting happens each time. The mood is similar. There are scary moments, funny moments, entertaining moments, and interesting moments. It's a good book with a mix of different good things. So yes, a good book. I would definitely recommend The Wasteland. You have to read the previous Stephen King Dark Tower books, but here the lore really starts and the story really begins. It takes 3 books for the lore to begin. That's a weird thing for this Dark Tower series. This was the Avid reader's review of the Dark Tower 3 The Wastelands, written by Stephen King in 1991. I hope you enjoyed this review, and I will see you guys next time.